to clarify, so we created two, call them episodes. So there was a sort of a first half and a second half, and Roosevelt was responsible for directing the first half, and you could see when the two Jackies hand off. So the first half of Maya was Jackie, the second half of Amira was Jackie, and then Kendall directed the second half. So just so you have a sense of how there was a little bit of different tone to each, and you could get a sense of what was happening there. Any questions that you might have of us, of our process, of any of the creators? We're really happy you're here. Yes?
Yeah, so this question is for anyone, well really anyone, but anyone who was involved in the writing especially. When it came to, making such a sort of condensed and experimental adaptation of this work, like how much did you hew to like the original text and the original wording, and how much did you kind of just go with it to keep the spirit?
So we had a little bit of a process where we wanted to essentially identify which themes we really wanted to focus on. There's a lot in that book, but we chose to really focus on two cores, memories and coming of age, and the two directors took one of those themes, and there's more of a focus on memories in the first half and coming of age in the second. And so after narrowing down to the themes that we wanted to do, we kind of went through and decided which parts of the text reflected the themes that we thought we wanted for our show. And after that, when it came to adapting, it more so we had to take poetry and turn it to dialogue, and so there was that whole process, but it came up pretty well.
Does anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, following up on that, I feel like it was pretty easy to adapt it because a lot of it is, talking from that first person point of view. So for the scenes for Jacqueline, it became pretty easy. And when she's talking about the people in her life, it's a lot of he said, she said. So it was just a matter of giving them the line themselves instead of having Jackie say it. And also, so we stuck pretty close except for the classroom scene with Miss Vivo where it talks about feminism. She touched on it and she called her teacher a feminist, but we thought it would be best for the middle school experts to elaborate as easily as we could on what exactly feminism was.
Great question, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm curious with the two actors who played Jackie, were there any parts that really resonated with you as an actor and or just as a person experiencing this play?
The whole book. My grandma is from the South, so reading it just reminded me of her and my childhood. And then the other half of my family's from the East Coast, so that also reminded me of my childhood. And there is a universality. Look at you, Dr. Katie here.
You gotta write the first time.
To the Black experience that, kind of spans across time. But the piece of text that I actually chose to adapt was the second to last scene, the I believe, just because that resonated with me the most, something about living in two worlds and kind of seeing truth in everything. I really liked that.
I would say for me, I really enjoyed the Angela Davis scene, specifically the line where she says, we are not afraid to die for what we believe in, and then realizing the gravity of that statement, because, Black and brown children experience a very different childhood than other people, and so that scene definitely resonated with me.
Great question, thank you. I saw another hand. Oh, Eric.
You all did a fabulous job making the images and text fly off the page. Awesome. I'm curious how being part of this process changed the way that you understand the original text now when you go back and read it.
It's so much more vivid. It's just that much more real. I mean, reading it, I recommend it to everyone because it's an incredible book and an incredible piece of work. But yeah, I felt really connected to it when I read it, and then performing it, I feel like I know Jacqueline even better. It's such a personal piece, and I feel like you really get into her mind and her thoughts and her experiences. So I would love to meet her. I would love to talk to this woman because I feel like I've worked with so much of her life now, and so it's really cool.
Anybody else have a way that they've resonated with the text differently after spending this much time with it? Well, you got one really good answer. Anybody else? Questions for the group?
I have one more then.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm really curious about the middle school experts and how they reacted to work like this, because because I don't think the first thing I would say I ever encountered that was like kind of went off the beaten path of like linear narrative trajectory was when I was 13 and my dad showed me No Country for Old Men for some reason. So I'm curious, like, how does a younger audience respond to something that doesn't have such a clear, straightforward presentation?
Matthew, and then.
For my group, we read it in class, and you really have to explain like every single detail to them, because they didn't understand that like I wasn't gonna be the one playing Jacqueline's dad. So they were like, I was just reading it, and then someone said, "Does he have emotions?"
Oh, great.
And it was, so a lot of the time they don't get it. So you really have to explain everything. Like we're not the ones performing it. We're reading it to you. We're coming to you for like help with the script. Does this make sense to you? Do you understand it?
So Matthew's talking about the pre-process,
Oh,
obviously,
yeah.
right, where we took it versus this past Tuesday. What were you gonna?
But yeah, and like going off of that, honestly, there's like two sides to the coin, because there's like those kids who like, you know, they needed the extra, they might needed more information, and you know, but then there was also those kids who like really felt connected to it, even though they didn't fully understand. Like there was a kid there who didn't even speak English. He was one of the Spanish-speaking students there, and he said it made him cry.
Aww.
And that was coming from Tuesday when we performed on its feet. So two really different answers, because the experience of taking unfinished text and just reading, you know, as Matthew was talking about, is really different for anyone, right? Let alone middle school students who maybe haven't seen a lot of theater. And then when we brought it in on its feet, even students who didn't speak the language could get a different, you know, sense of what was going on. And at that point, as you saw today, the actors were emotionally connected and they were playing through each other, and we had our visuals showing there as well on a single screen, so they were able to see that as well. Any other responses to how you found, in particular, Tuesday? What Tuesday was like for the middle school students? How you felt their responses were?
Yeah, one thing really quick is that, because we all had different classes we taught to, and me, Amir, and Javon, our class, half of them didn't speak English, and half of them, I mean, a lot of them didn't even just speak Spanish. So I would translate in Spanish, and then the kids would translate to their friends who didn't speak Spanish or English. And so we had to really work with that and make sure that things are going to be known through the visuals and through our actions to the audience who might not speak the language. But at the end of it, the kids were really receptive, and they were all coming up, and they seemed really excited, and they were quiet while we were presenting. They were performing. They were engaged. So I think we scored.
Yeah. This was our set. We took many of us, as well as some others who weren't here, went to the same middle school earlier in the semester with a Shakespeare, 45-minute Shakespeare As You Like It. And the difference between this group, which knew us and knew this work, their ability to stay focused and stay present and stay was much, much stronger. So that was something that we noted as well. Yeah, it's been a great experience. This course has asked a lot of these students in terms of being artists, teaching artists out in the school, and adapting, and then performing. And they all adapted together, so they were all adapting without knowing what roles they would play, or other than the directors knew that they would direct and the teaching artists knew they were taking the lead. So it was a really collaborative and very open-hearted process of, yeah, I'm just gonna make this text, and maybe I'll get to play the part I'm interested in, but maybe I won't, and that, I feel like you all seemed really generous about that. There were other feelings that you didn't share with us as directors, but it seemed like, any other questions for the group? Yeah, Kate?
I just have a comment, if I may. I'm not surprised the students were engaged. I was completely hooked the whole time. And when it ended, I was like, oh.
20 minutes!
Yeah, so quick, but so much happened in that. I looked at my watch at one point, I was like, oh, it's only been 5 minutes. There's so much packed in there. And what I want to say also is I just really appreciate the balance between the challenges that Jackie faced in her life and how she was confronting those, and the pure joy she seems to have in writing and learning and being a person and in her family. Like I'm not surprised that the kids were getting emotional, because I was also, there's just some really awesome emotions in there. It's very well balanced and multidimensional. So thank you for that. It's good work.
Thank you. I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you all so much for coming.